Nevada Party, Charlie O here. This is the Make the Money and Run podcast for March 11th, 2022. We've been off about a month. We're happy to be back just in time for NC2A basketball, NBA and NHL going on, and the lockout is over in the Major League Baseball scenario that we've got. Spring training will start this weekend. Opening day will be April 7th. They'll have a full 162 game schedule, and all is good in the world right now. And we're happy to have everybody back on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter. Charlie O, how are you? Been a while.
Hey, man, I'm good. Good to see you. And wow, it is all happening in the world of sports. When we talk about March Madness, it's not just basketball. Everything in the world of sports goes crazy in the month of March. And this year, a little more crazy than usual.
All right. Every week, we'll be on every Friday at 3 o'clock Eastern, 12 o'clock Pacific on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter live with a rebroadcast every Friday at 6 o'clock Eastern, 3 o'clock Pacific. You can also download, subscribe on Apple or anywhere you get your podcast. We've got it all set up now. We've got a new scenario going on here. So it's Make the Money and Run every Friday, 3 o'clock Eastern, 12 o'clock Pacific. When football rolls around, we'll have something else to do with that as well, too. But right now, it's once a week. And then don't forget our social media selections every day, 6 o'clock Eastern on the weekdays, and then 3 times on Saturday, twice on Sunday. We'll do some more stuff in the mornings with NC2A basketball coming next week with the tournament and everything. We might have a Wednesday show as well, too. So stay tuned for that. Speaking of when football comes up, we have not had a show since conference championship weekend. So, Charlie, let's recap a little bit of the football. We know wagering and Make the Money and Run is primarily based on football and football wagering. So let's talk a little Super Bowl. Super Bowl 56. We'll spend a few minutes on it. The LA Rams in Los Angeles beat the Cincinnati Bengals 23-20 on a game-winning touchdown from Matthew Stafford to Cooper Kupp. Kupp had 2 touchdowns, including the game winner at 1:25 to go in the fourth. He was named the Super Bowl MVP, 8 receptions, 92 yards. Stafford, 283 yards, 3 touchdowns, 2 interceptions. Burrow had the 1 touchdown to open the third quarter, 75 yards to T. Higgins. Beckham Jr., the first touchdown of the game. I had that as a prop bet, so that's why I included that. 75 yards from Burrow to T. Higgins. That was the last touchdown of the game before Cooper Kupp's touchdown for the game winner. I know it's been a month since we talked about it. We talked right before championship weekend, conference championship weekend, the 49ers and Rams, the Bengals and Chiefs, 2 great games. And then the Super Bowl ended up being a great game as well, too. So the last 3 games of the NFL season were outstanding, Charlie, but a little bit on the Super Bowl right now.
Well, what a great game. I mean, if you're a network, you go to your script writers and say, write me a script for the Super Bowl, and they come back with that and say, here it is, and you go, great, if they can just pull this off, it'll be a ratings winner. And it was. The fear was going into that game was that Cincinnati would have expended everything they had getting to the Super Bowl, and it would be a runaway game by the Rams. It turned out not to be the case. Cincinnati came in there way more poised than anybody thought they were going to be. And Vasu, you and I talked about it going in. I think they went in there as a team and just said, hey, we got nothing to lose. We weren't supposed to be here anyway. So we're just going to go play football. And they had handled the whole week that way. And they went in and they played good football. I think the thing that was really outstanding at the end of the game was that the Rams found themselves and said, look, we know who we are. We know what we need to do. And they took the time that they had left. They made that march. And then what did they do? They went to their strength, Stafford to Kupp. And,
right.
and what's the old line? You dance with the girl you brought. Okay. Right. And that's what they did. And it won them a Super Bowl. Now, doggone it, they won by 3, and I needed them to win by 4. But, from an entertainment standpoint, it was everything that you want it to be. From a gambling standpoint, we always tell you, beware of the hook. And I got suckered in and got caught by the hook. So there you go.
Yeah, Matthew Stafford, 283 yards, 3 touchdowns, the game winner to Kupp. Beckham, the first touchdown. Aaron Donald with the last play of the game on 4th down. Basically got to Burrow and stopped Cincinnati from getting down there they were about 2 plays away from getting into field goal range, possibly tying it up and sending it to overtime. It would have been the second overtime game in Super Bowl history after the Patriots-Falcons game a few years back. But talk about the Rams going into the playoff scenario. A lot of people did not have them going to the Super Bowl once they got in the playoffs. They got by Arizona. Tampa Bay was a tough game. They had a big lead. They came back. Tampa Bay came back on them, and then they got the field goal at the end. Of course, it was a Cooper Kupp catch down the middle in the middle of a bad defense for Tampa Bay that got them set up. Meanwhile, on the AFC side, the Bengals beat the Raiders. They ended up going to Tennessee and beating the number 1 seed Titans, despite the fact that Joe Burrow got hit all playoffs long. He's got sacked 7 times in the Super Bowl as well, too. That's a lot, but they were still in it. Joe Mixon had a pretty good game. Higgins had the most yards, but for the most part, the Rams blanketed those receivers, as did Cincinnati. I think their secondary kind of covered the Rams receivers a lot better than I thought they did, that they were able to, and they did get a pass rush on Matthew Stafford. But, boy, Joe Burrow got hit 7 times or sacked 7 times, got hit probably a lot more, and the scoring really did dip in the second half of the game. But turned out that the Rams, the storybook ending, ended in Los Angeles for Matthew Stafford and his teammates. Aaron Donald, we don't know what's going to happen with him. A lot of free agents that are going to be on that staff. Aaron Donald, Von Miller's a free agent. What they do with Odell Beckham Jr., he got hurt. That was kind of sad to see him getting hurt right after. I think it was in the second quarter, right? He had scored the touchdown. Somewhere in the first or second quarter. It was before half that he got hurt.
A little foggy and a few bourbons later. So a
month later.
But it was, it was, because he had gone in there and obviously had committed to doing well for that team. And you know me, I'm a redemption story guy. So I was happy to see him doing well there, but they're going to have some decisions to make there.
No doubt about it. A lot of decisions to be made coming up in 2022. They've already had the combine. The draft will be coming up soon. OTAs are going to start here for the young players after the draft, and then training camp before we know it. This is our middle of March. By the time July rolls around in 3 more months, we're going to have training camp, and we'll be all ready to go on the Make the Money and Run podcast as far as futures. Casey Freelove's favorite, the futures wagers, and of course Nick Robinson, who will join us later, possibly on the player props as well too. But a lot of things that went on. Overall playoff overview by you, Charlie, in terms of the whole playoffs run by all 16 teams, all 14 teams in there.
Well, Vasu, in at least recent memory, the best round of playoffs that we've seen in the National Football League in a long time. I mean, last minute plays, overtimes. I mean, it was a bettor's nightmare,
right?
But from a fandom standpoint, it was everything that you wanted it to be. And it turned out it was a great way to win a little money too. So if you went right, so it was a great season. And I mean, let's be honest. I mean, we always talk about this. I mean, if you're the guy who thinks you're going to be the Wolf of Las Vegas, okay, and that you're going to leave your day job and spend all your time being a lounge lizard in Vegas, making $1 million a year doing this, you're watching the wrong show. Wake up on Saturday morning, listen to some of those 800 number shows, call those guys, because they're going to guarantee you're going to make 50 grand a week. You're not, but they're going to guarantee that. This is a show where we wager for fun. We use this as an additional part of our fandom. And so from that standpoint, what a year. What a great year.
Yeah.
And there was a little cash. We hope you make enough cash to take the kids to Disneyland, take your wife on a cruise, do those kind of things. And if you worked it right and listened to the information, this was a year where you could have made a little money. And doggone it, I hope you put your money on the Bengals because they paid off.
Yeah, no, we had a pretty good year in terms of our wagering as well, too. For one of the last couple of years that we've done the show, it's been pretty much around 500. We were well above 500 this year. We had good information for everybody, and we want everybody to stick with us as we go into year 3. We had our anniversary show a few months ago as well, too. But as far as the NFL playoffs, before we get to the offseason already, the NFL playoffs are outstanding. I mean, the divisional weekend, 3 games ending on a kick, and 1 game ending on a touchdown in overtime, the Mahomes to Kelsey pass against Buffalo when Buffalo thought they had the game. And, of course, McPherson, Robbie Gould, and I'm trying to think of the other one, that the other kicker that was there as well, too. But
that one has the leg. Yeah.
Yeah, the one has the leg, right. Kansas City was there as well, too. Harrison Butker But all those kickers, Tennessee, Robbie Gould. It was, 3 of the kickers. And then the fourth one was the touchdown, the divisional weekend. And then the conference championships, Evan McPherson again in overtime for the Bengals over the Chiefs in a highly anticipated game, +7 for Cincinnati in that game. The Niners were +3.5 against the Rams. They lost by a field goal at the end. Matt Gay got the field goal. Matt Gay, that's who I'm thinking of. Matt Gay got the game-winning kick against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and he ended up kicking the game-winning kick against the 49ers right before the end of the fourth quarter as well, too. So the Rams come out with the victory. Cooper Kupp gets the MVP. They're going into 2022 as the favorites. I don't see any change unless they lose a lot of free agencies, and Aaron Donald's a big one for the Rams as well, too. So he's got some decisions to make. I'm sure they'll let everybody know before free agency starts, Charlie, but what a year it was in the NFL. Speaking of the NFL, let's just hit this a little bit because it never ends. Right after the season, a few weeks, the combine takes place, and now we've got 3 big trades to talk about and anything else that maybe want to pop in the next few minutes here. But how about the big one? Russell Wilson going from Seattle to Denver for a boatload. 3 players, including Drew Lock, Noah Fant, 5 draft picks, 2 number 1s, and I think 2 number 2s, and a number 3. I don't know what years they're all in. You can find it anywhere. But that's obviously the big one. Russell Wilson going to Denver. Now he goes to the AFC West. Justin Herbert, Patrick Mahomes, Derek Carr, already in that division. What a division this is going to be, the AFC West, with those 4 quarterbacks. It's just a matter of who can play defense. Kansas City was okay this year. The Chargers made some questionable moves. And then the Raiders, we know about their defense as well, too. But Denver had a good running game, and they had a really good defense. They were 3rd in the NFL in scoring against. And that was without Von Miller after they traded him midway through the year. They just didn't have enough offense to compete with Kansas City and the Chargers going down to the end of it. Now Russell Wilson is there. Of course, Carson Wentz goes to Washington. They lost to Jacksonville in Week 18. I think his fate was sealed when they lost to Jacksonville on that final weekend of the season because there was an infinitesimal chance they were not going to make the playoffs. And sure enough, they did not make the playoffs. And then the big one yesterday, Khalil Mack going to the Chargers. He's going to team up with Joey Bosa, and they're going to play in Los Angeles for the Chargers, and that's a big one. Chicago got a boatload back as well, too. And then Aaron Rodgers, all the talk about Aaron Rodgers, and he's leaving Green Bay. Well, it turns out he's going to stay in Green Bay for another 4 years. He's re-signed with the Packers for 4 more years. Lots of things to go on. Obviously, we'll get into it more as we get to it. We got NCAA basketball, NBA, NHL a little bit to talk about as well, too. But talk about the NFL and the offseason already, Charlie.
Well, I saw a grade of the trade between the Broncos and the Seahawks, and they gave the Broncos an A+, which, okay, duh, do you think? But they gave the Seahawks a D+. And I thought that was very disingenuous because the reason that Russell Wilson is now in Denver is because Russell Wilson said, guys, I want out of here. I'm done here. Because all you had to do was look around and realize that you were in the middle of a war zone in Seattle. You look around and it was over. You have to take everything has been deconstructed. It's going to be a complete rebuilding deal. The guy's 33 years old, and he doesn't want to wait until he's 38 to be competitive again to go back to the Super Bowl. So he just said, thanks. It's great. I love you. When I'm done, I want to come back and I want you to retire my number, and we'll do a 1-day contract that I'll retire as a Seahawk, but that's it. I'm out. So they did the only thing they could do. Now, how is it a D+ when you get a first round pick in 22, 23, second round picks in 22 and 23, and a 5th round in 22? Okay, that looks pretty good to me. Now, I know part of what they're saying is, well, you get a first round in 22, but there's not a great quarterback out there. All right, who says you have to get the quarterback in 22? You've got a quarterback, you got a first round pick in 23, and there are projected some great quarterbacks in 23. But who says you can't package that up and find your quarterback with those picks? I don't see the downside, especially for a team that we know that's in rebuilding. And the last time that Denver said, we're done playing this, okay, you're the quarterback, now you're the quarterback game. And when I got a quarterback, they got Peyton Manning. And what did they wind up doing? They won the Super Bowl.
Right.
Okay. It's a good deal all the way around. Does this also mark the sign that there'll be a change of head coach in Seattle? Yeah. Yeah, because you're not you've signaled that you're rebuilding. So it's a 5-year plan now. Okay, so yeah, there'll be a coaching change probably at the end of the season that will go with that as well. Is it sad if you're a Seattle Seahawks fan? Yeah, but you know what? You're a football fan. We all go through it. We feel your pain, but we don't care.
Yeah, there's a lot of quarterbacks that are going to be out there in the offseason, a lot of trade possibilities. Obviously, we live in the Bay Area. Jimmy Garoppolo is one of the names as well, too. Carson Wentz goes to Washington. Other movement is going to take place as far as quarterbacks.
That one I don't get. I got to tell you right now, that just shows the complete incompetence of everybody that's in Washington and running the Commanders. That tells you why it's a bad nickname, everything else, because no one is in command there. Listen, folks, I have no dislike for Carson Wentz. Everything I hear about the guy is he's a prince of a guy. I work with a radio corporation. We have stations in Philly. Everybody tells me nicest guy in the world. Unfortunately, he's very damaged physically as a football player. They knew it in Philly. That's why they moved him on. He proved it again, unfortunately, last year in Indianapolis. I was rooting for him. I wanted him to do well. It didn't happen. Folks, he didn't get a Christmas present that said, voila, you're better. No, it's the same Carson Wentz. What they were doing in Washington's front office is absolutely beyond belief. Anybody that's a Commanders fan, turn in your season tickets. It's going to be awful. Drive up the road and go see the Ravens play, for heaven's sakes. It's only a 45-minute drive. Dumbest thing I've ever seen. Just stupid.
Yeah. Well, we'll have a lot of football talk as time goes on. Obviously, the offseason just getting started. OTAs and training camps are a few months away, and the NFL draft will be at the end of April as well.
I love the Khalil Mack thing. Chargers, woo!
Yeah, nice job by that. He had his time with the Bears, and everybody needs to move on from that as well, too. And this is coming from a Bears fan as well, too. All right, when we come back, that's the wrap-up of the NFL. We will come back. We'll talk a little NBA and NHL, and we will hit all the college basketball around 3:30 Eastern. We'll have our selections for Friday at 3:30 as well, too, at the bottom of the hour. So if you watch it on replay, you'll have enough time to make your wagers for the night games tonight as well, too. Thanks to everybody on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter for joining us as well. Vasi Vadaparty, Charlie O on the Make the Money and Run podcast for March 11th, 2022. Back in 30 seconds. All right, welcome back to the Make the Money and Run podcast, the return after a month. Vasi Vadaparty, Charlie O with you. We'll have Nick Robinson on as the year goes on. He's still in the middle of school. So the University of Oregon, who had a bad game against Colorado, we'll get to that in college basketball. He says he has a project, but I'm pretty sure he's soaking his wet appetite right now based on how they played yesterday. They had a rough year against Colorado. More of the college basketball to come. We're here every Friday. We're back every Friday, 3 o'clock Eastern, 12 o'clock Pacific, live on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter. And a replay version will also be available at 6 o'clock Eastern and 3 o'clock Pacific. Download, subscribe on Apple or anywhere you get your podcast. We got a new format set up. Everything's going good as we go into 2022. Baseball season is back. The NBA, the NHL, the NFL will come back in a few months. And then, of course, college basketball, which we'll get to in about 15 minutes. But let's go to the NBA. We're about 15 games away, almost 3/4 of the season, regular season done now, Charlie. In the Eastern Conference, Miami is up by 2 games in the loss column on Milwaukee. Philadelphia is 3rd. The Bulls are 4th. Boston is 5th. Cleveland 6th. Toronto, Brooklyn, Charlotte, and Atlanta are 7-10. They're in the playoffs, the play-in games. If it ended today, the Wizards and Knicks are still in the hunt for the play-in round. In the West, Phoenix has clinched the best record in the West. They haven't clinched the best record yet in the NBA, 53-13. Without Chris Paul the last few weeks, they just got Devin Booker back. Memphis has played outstanding. They've got the tiebreaker on the Warriors right now, so they're even in record, but they're the number 2 seed. Golden State is 3. Utah's 4. They've struggled a little bit. Dallas has played better since Doncic came back from his injury. They're a half game up on Denver and Minnesota, the Clippers, the Lakers, and New Orleans round out the 7-10 in the play-in. Everyone except for Houston is technically still alive in the play-in as you do the magic numbers. But with basically about 15 to 17 games to go for everybody here, Charlie, let's break down the East first. Let's talk about the East. Milwaukee playing well. They're in the second spot. They're 2 games back of Miami. Miami had a tough game the other night. They lost without Jimmy Butler the other night. It was to Phoenix. The same night Phoenix got Booker back. But big things going on in the East. People say the East is still better than the West. I think it's more competitive than the West right now, but I think the West overall is still pretty good, Charlie.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's one of the things, Vasu, that it makes it a little hard to judge how good the East is in comparison to the West, because right now the East is more competitive. I think there's more a more of a competitive balance there. So they're kind of beating up on each other a lot. I don't know if they had to play the West every night on an equal basis, whether we would see the same thing. Hang me on a second here. But there's some good basketball going on, and I think we're going to have some great playoffs. I like Milwaukee. I think their trajectory is right. They're peaking, I think, at the right time. So they're moving up. I mean, don't get me wrong. I still like the Heat, but the Heat are very dependent on Butler. You take Butler out of the I mean, all teams are dependent on a star. Right. It's NBA, small rosters. Yeah. But the Heat are really dependent on Butler. And when Butler is out or not at the top, they don't have a lot of compensation that they can do for him. So I think that's a little scary right there. But the Bucks I like. The Sixers, this Harden thing, man. You know, I mean, it's not that I mean, I didn't think it was not going to work. I just wasn't sure how it was going to work. I sure didn't think it was going to work as well as it did. Now, I know everybody last night, did you see what the Nets? Okay, all right. You know,
5-1. I'll take 5-1 any day.
You know, that's one of those adrenaline pump up game one-offs. Don't get all excited yet, folks. I'm liking how that's working out right now. Now, will that work next year the same way? It's James Harden. Who knows? But I mean, with James Harden, you go with the now. So the now is pretty good. I like that. The Bulls continue to hang in there. The Celtics, you know what? We told you all, everybody was writing the Celtics off a while back. And these two guys right here, we said, don't do that. And we were right. The Raptors, again, there's a team. Everybody said, oh, they're done. They're not. And then you come on down. The Nets, they're crawling back into it. The Hornets, they're trying to fall out of it. Atlanta's hanging on by the skin of their teeth. Yeah. And then you look at everybody else. You look at that bottom part of it there where it's at. They're all right now scrambling, saying, please, please, please don't let us get into the play-ins. You know,
no doubt about it. No doubt about it. I think the Miami Heat have proven that they're the best team in the East right now. They're pretty well balanced. They can't afford injuries to that team. They're not as talented as some of the other teams are. Brooklyn, boy, when they play on the road, that might have been the best bet of the night, best bet of the year last night, taking them on the road, because you get Kyrie Irving on the road. Now Durant's back, and eventually they'll get Ben Simmons on the floor. He didn't play last night, but they handled Philadelphia pretty easily last night. Ordinarily,
I did have a chance to listen to the post game for the Nets last night. There was a lot of speculation that Ben would be playing this Sunday against the Knicks. The guy said that's not going to happen. So it's going to be they're projecting sometime next week with Simmons, but not Sunday.
I give a lot of credit to the Milwaukee Bucks through all the injuries that they've had. They're right there in the number 2 spot. They could end up taking over the number 1 spot. Them and Miami have had good matchups. Philadelphia, Joel Embiid is my MVP this year. I don't think anybody's playing better than Joel Embiid. Chicago has a tough time with the top 4 teams in both the East and West. If they're under 500, they're going to get a win. But right now, they cannot beat the top teams. Boston's been red hot the last 2 weeks. They got a 14-point win over Charlotte. Charlotte has gone downhill. Cleveland has still played well. Kevin Love off the bench. I mean, if he's not the 6th man of the year, then I'm watching different basketball right now because Kevin Love is playing outstanding. Toronto's had injuries. Siakam's not been the same the last couple of years. Fred VanVleet was out for a couple of games, but they still managed to win a little bit. Atlanta was in the conference finals last year. They're struggling. They don't play any defense. That's their biggest problem. How about the New York Knicks? They're out of it right now as of today. But, boy, what a week they had. They went into Los Angeles. They blasted the Clippers. They came back from 20 down to the Kings to not only cover but win outright and win by 15. And then they go into Dallas, who was playing very well recently, and they go beat the Dallas Mavericks by 25 points as well. And they've got the Memphis Grizzlies tonight. I'm not taking anything away against the Knicks right now. Memphis is really good. I don't know if they'll beat Memphis tonight. I'm pretty sure the way that they've been playing all week, Tom Thibodeau finally got them playing defense. But that's an interesting scenario going on with the New York Knicks in the East, and they could end up being in that 7-10 spot. They're 28-38 right now. They're 4 games back of the Hawks for that 10th spot. And Washington, we don't know what's going on with Washington. They're better. They started off hot, but then they had injuries as well too. But that trade has really worked out for them with the Lakers, with Kuzma there especially. Kuzma's having a really good year for Washington as well, Charlie, as we wrap up the East.
Yeah, and you talk about Tibbs. I really hope that everybody, and I'm talking about ownership in New York, will be patient with him, because I think you're seeing what the Knicks can be, and they're going to need that. They're going to need to add. They need some pieces, obviously, but he's got that thing going in the right direction, and I think this is the kind of team that Tibbs needs. I think Minnesota was too young, and he's not the kind of coach that can deal with youth. Okay. He doesn't have the patience, but this team is made up of the kind of guys where he can get, and then he can take a guy like Toppin, who's a younger guy, match him up with some of the more veteran guys and say, okay, take care of him and let them understand what I'm doing, and then get that kind of mix going. So I think the Knicks, the Knicks could slip in there, because they're going to finish in a position where they're not going to get a great draft pick anyway, even if they're in the lottery. So it's in their best interest. And you're right. Washington, they're kind of mediocre right now, but again, another piece or two, a nice free agent signing, and they may be interested in spending a little money now that they've got some core, a nice draft here or there. They could become a legitimate playoff team next year. And if that makes it sound like I'm saying illegitimate teams with play-ins, yes, that's exactly what I meant.
Well, no Bradley Beal, so that's going to hurt them the rest of the way down there as well too. But
and what are you going to do with that? You got to make a decision there at some point what you're going to do with that, because that's a lot of money. And Beal also, that guy really deserves to be able to go and finish out his career someplace where he can enjoy some success.
Well, with everything going on in the East, I mean, you never know from year to year with the Eastern teams. Everybody's getting older, and Washington keeps this young core, and Bradley Beal comes back. They can, I mean, the East isn't great. In my opinion, the East isn't great, and they can compete. They may not win the East, and with Giannis and everybody there in the East still at the top, but they can certainly play, and they can score. We know they can score. They figure out how to play any defense, and they'll figure out what to do come next year. But right now, all the injuries have hurt them. All right, let's move on to the West here. Last few minutes we got in the NBA. Phoenix Suns have already clinched the best record in the West with the injuries that they've got. They've played 66 games. They've got 16 games left to go. Warriors and Grizzlies are both 9 back. The magic number is kaput because they're 9 back with the Magic with 8 to go. Basically, is the way that it's looked at. There's no way. They're 9 back. Is that right? Let me see if I got this right. 53 and 75. Magic number is 8. I'm sorry. The magic number is 8 for Memphis and Grizzly. And Golden State and Utah as well, too. All three with 22 losses. The magic number for Denver is 4. And then 83 for Denver. And then Minnesota, the Clippers, the Lakers, and New Orleans don't have a shot at the best record. So I take that back. The magic number is 8 for Phoenix to get the best record clinched over Memphis, Golden State, and Utah. What a year for the West. The top 4 teams right now. Memphis and John Morant, they don't play any defense, but, boy, they can score, and they're exciting. And they have beaten teams by a lot of points this year. They drubbed New Orleans by 30 the other night. They whooped up on the Warriors a couple times this year. But the Phoenix Suns, to me, are still the class of the league without Chris Paul. They've got guys that are coming off the bench. They've got Crowder. Aiton's playing really well. Campaign off the bench. Devin Booker missed 5 games due to COVID, but he's back. He looked good against Miami as well, too. Where do we take the West for now, Charlie, with Phoenix leading by 9 games over Memphis and Golden State with 16 to go?
Well, the scary part is Phoenix has now clinched the best record. They don't have Chris Paul on the floor. So once the playoffs start, you're going to have a rested Chris Paul ready to come back in and be a part of that team. So that, if you're in the West, you got to go, oh crap. Okay. That's not good. So yeah, it's very impressive. Very impressive. Then Memphis. Yeah. They're on fire. Then you come to the enigma, and that's the Golden State Warriors. And folks, if you're putting money on the Warriors right now, do not buy into everything's going to be okay when Draymond returns.
Right. Which will be Monday, by the way, according to what I read.
Because everybody has been going, well, everything's going to be fine when Draymond comes back. Everything's going to be fine when Draymond comes back. No, everything's not going to be fine when Draymond returns, because Draymond's not been playing basketball. Okay, you can simulate games. You can go up against. You can scrimmage against your G League team. You can do all those kind of things. But it's not like being on the floor against a team that's got something to win or lose in the National Basketball Association. And he's going to have 7 games to play competitively, and he's going to have minutes restrictions in there. So he's going to have rest, yes, but he's not going to have competition there. And everything that is wrong with the Warriors right now cannot be focused on the fact that Draymond's not there. Okay, so when Draymond steps onto the court is not going to separate and water rush through the middle of Chase Center. Okay, it's not going to be a miracle of all miracles. Now, will it make a difference? Yes, sure, it's going to make a difference. But I heard an analysis the other day that I thought was very poignant, and the fact was that the Warriors have not yet learned to play with Clay back on the court yet.
Right.
They were playing very well, and then Clay came back, and of course, and logically, this is not a criticism. Good Lord, man, don't think I'm going to criticize Steve Kerr, because Steve Kerr has forgotten more in the last 30 seconds about basketball than I'll ever know. But when Clay came back, obviously he's going to eat up a lot of minutes. So what's happened with the rest of the bench has been they have not been able to figure out the rest of their roles when those 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 guys come onto the floor. And they just not been able to pull that together. Well, it's a little late into the season to still not have things together. I mean, am I saying that the Warriors could blow a first round series? Yes, that's exactly what I'm saying, because they're not playing consistent basketball at all. Now, do I really think that? No. But could they blow a second round? Yep. So they're scary, because this team now is not what they were 3 months ago. So it's very interesting to watch them. Jazz are so stinky scary because we never watch them. We never pay any attention.
Yeah, but they're an enigma. They lose games that they shouldn't lose. They got blown out by New Orleans on the road last week, and then by the way, I updated that. They have 24 losses, so they're in fourth place. But Dallas has 26 losses. Luka Doncic, since he came back from the injury, he's plus 13. Their defensive metrics are unbelievably better after he lost weight and after he went on injury. They're playing a lot better right now.
Look at him physically, man. The guy finally looks like he's ready to play basketball.
And then Jokic in the MVP race, but they're a little tough defensively to watch as far as Denver goes. But they're 5 games back of Memphis and Golden State. Utah's only 2 games back. I mean, this 2 to 7, 2 to 6 seedings can switch up in the next 16 games. There's still a lot of things that could happen as far as seeding goes. I heard Steve Kerr yesterday on local radio He does a local show here, his weekly coaches show here in the Bay Area with his friend Tom Tolbert. Anyway, they were talking about depends on who your seeding is, whether you want to finish in third or second. Knowing Steve Kerr or knowing of Steve Kerr, I think that he'd want to win as many games as possible. Now, catching Phoenix might be difficult, 9 back with 16 to go. That's going to be a little of a difficult task. So Phoenix may end up having that 1 seed right now. And then the 7 to 10 play-ins. Those teams that are getting hot to get in the play-ins, we saw what happened with some of those play-in series last year. They end up taking the next round, and they end up taking those teams to 5 or 6 games or 7 games in some cases. But I'm not counting anybody out yet as far as when the playoffs start. We know it's the second season. Phoenix has got to get healthy. Memphis is really good. Golden State can be really good. I just thought the best bet of the board was when they played the Clippers Tuesday night after having that 4-game losing streak. They were a 6-point favorite against the Clippers. And after watching the Clippers just blow their big lead or blow their game against the Knicks on Sunday, that at some point the Warriors were going to play defense. And boy, they turned it on Tuesday night against the Clippers and ended up winning by 20. We talk about Utah all the time. They're an enigma. Donovan Mitchell's been hurt a little bit. Gobert's played okay this year. They don't have Joe Ingles. Bojanovic has been great. And then Denver, boy, I don't know how they do it. I know they got Jokic in the middle, but they shoot the ball really well. Defensively, they're still a little lagging. And then Minnesota's been hot this year. They're only 2 games back of that 6th spot for Denver. Minnesota's got Towns and Edwards, and they're both playing well. D'Angelo Russell's even playing well. The Clippers, I can't figure out. The Lakers, we know that story already. And the Pelicans, now they've got some injuries to deal with. So the Pelicans could be downtrending, especially after their game they had the other night against the Grizzlies, where they got blown out by 30. So it's going to be interesting in the West. Lots of things to talk about. We'll keep you updated on that. We got a lot of basketball to finish up in the regular season before we get to the playoffs, but we'll be all over it.
Goes till June, baby. Goes till June.
Social media selections every day. We'll talk about the teams. We'll give you our reasoning for it. Big games this weekend. The Clippers are at Atlanta tonight. That's a big game for both teams in each conference. The Mavericks are at Houston. Cleveland, Miami is a pretty big game tonight as well, too. The Knicks are at Memphis. Knicks on a 3-game winning streak. The Wizards go to visit the Lakers. Toronto and Phoenix tonight as well, too, in the land of the desert. We will get to our selections. Let me get to Saturday here. Saturday, the big games are the Milwaukee Bucks are going to go visit Golden State tomorrow night. Toronto is going to go visit Denver on a back-to-back after Phoenix. And then Cleveland will go play Chicago. So those are some of the big games. And then Sunday, just to roll through because I know we got ABC games. Knicks and Nets on Sunday. Dallas-Boston on Sunday. Lakers-Phoenix on Sunday night. Memphis, Oklahoma City. So there's some good games in the last 15 games to get to as well. And we'll be all over it as well, too, right here on the Make the Money and Run podcast. Every Friday, 3 o'clock Eastern, 6 o'clock on replay as well, too. All right, when we come back, we'll have our selections for Friday, and then we'll get into college basketball as well, too. Oh, let me give you the NHL update here. We do bet a little bit on the NHL. We do put them out on social media selections. Not a lot to talk about in the NHL. When we get to the playoffs, it'll be very interesting, but I just find it very fascinating. The Colorado Avalanche are the only team in the NHL over 80 points. They have 87 points already. They're up by 14 points over the St. Louis Blues. There's still 20 games to go, so there's no magic numbers involved yet. But 87 points already through 58 games. That is unheard of. And they are good. And hopefully, for their sake, they can get to a conference final or a Stanley Cup. 16 points over Minnesota. Calgary has a 5-point lead in the other division series over LA and 9 over Vegas. Nashville and Dallas lead the wild card, but 4 teams, including Edmonton, Vancouver, Anaheim, and Winnipeg, all within about 4 points of the 2 wild card spots as well, too. In the East, Florida has a 5-point lead on Tampa Bay, 6 over Toronto. Carolina has an 8-point lead over the Rangers, who's had a good year, and Pittsburgh as well, too. Boston and Washington, 75 and 72 points. They lead the wild card by 13 points, so that's going to be tough for anybody to catch the second-place wild card, Washington Capitals, right now. 13 points is a lot, even though there's still 22 games left. The magic number, we'll figure out the magic number for it kind of as we get closer to the playoffs, but 13 points is a little too much maybe to catch up, and we might have our playoff seedings all set in the East already. But how about 87 points for the Colorado Avalanche, Charlie? That's one thing I just wanted to get into real quick before we take a break.
My grandson's girlfriend, they're down at Grand Canyon University. She's from Denver, and she is a diehard Avalanche fan. And of course, I just have to keep telling her how bad they are, that they're fakes. They're going in the first round. Needless to say, it's like lighting the fuse to dynamite every time I do that. Yeah, phenomenal. I mean, that's just crazy good. Just crazy good. I mean, it's fun to watch. I do want to say something, Vasu. I don't follow the NHL as like I used to when I used to cover the Sharks. But I've been having some fun with some parlays in the NHL. So if you want to have a little fun and want to just dabble a little bit in the NHL, just check out some parlays. They'll kind of guide you through, gives you a little something, some rooting interest in it, and it'll kind of suck you back into the NHL and get you ready for the playoffs, which NHL playoffs, Stanley Cup playoffs, is really exciting. If you've never gotten kind of caught up in that whirlwind, it's fun. So check out the parlays. Maybe do a few practice parlays, see how you like it. But shoot, I my winner last night. I made 2 bets last night. My winner was a parlay in the NHL. So there you go.
Vasu Vatapalli, Charlie O here on the Make the Money and Run podcast, back after a month on a hiatus. Every Friday, 3 o'clock Eastern, 12 o'clock Pacific. Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter. A replay version also available at 6 Eastern, 3 o'clock Pacific. So if you miss it, you can get it again at 3 o'clock Pacific time. Download and subscribe on Apple, anywhere you get it. Facebook, YouTube, Twitter. Thanks to everybody on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter for following us as well, too. All right, when we come back, all about the NCAA now. We're going to break it down by conference. We're going to have our selections when we come back, but it's going to be all about the NCAA as we finish up conference tournament weekend. We get to March Madness starting next Tuesday with the play-in games. And then St. Patrick's Day next Thursday, the first round of the NCAA tournament for this year, 2022. Great to have everybody back with us after our hiatus. We'll be back in 30 seconds and a breakdown of the complete NCAA picture going into the weekend. Vasu Vatapalli and Charlie O. All right, this is the Make the Money and Run podcast, back after about a month away on hiatus. Vasu Vatapalli, Charlie O here with you on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter live. Don't forget we have a replay 6 o'clock Eastern today as well, too. And, of course, you can download and subscribe on Apple or anywhere you get your podcasts. So if you happen to be watching the replay, we want to make sure you get your games in before the 7 o'clock time period, before the game starts. So I'm going to go first. I'm going to give you my picks. All college today. As far as the late games go, I'll give you an update on the scores here as we get to it. Wisconsin minus 3.5 over Michigan State in the Big Ten. Tennessee is 7.5 over, let me get this, in the SEC. They are going up against Mississippi State, 7.5 points favorite. Creighton, after their win over Marquette, they're going up against the 1 seed Providence in the Big East. I like Creighton at plus 3.5. Villanova minus 2.5. They are going up against Connecticut. They're looking to beat a team for the 3rd time this year. They've beaten Connecticut twice. TCU plus 8.5 against Kansas in the Big 12. USC and UCLA tonight in the Pac-12. That's the second game of the Pac-12 tonight on FS1. USC plus 6 against UCLA in Las Vegas tonight. And in the Mountain West, San Diego State minus 1.5. They have Colorado State. They have Colorado State. That is late night, midnight on CBS Sports Network in the Mountain West Conference from Las Vegas as well, too. All right, Charlie, let's get to your picks.
Okay, we'll start off here and talk about the college games then. I've got TCU plus 8 over Kansas. Now, I don't expect Horned Frogs to win this game, but this is the 3rd time they have met in the last 10 days, which is highly unusual in college basketball. So they know each other really well. And TCU has won covered 2/3 of their games as road underdogs. So I think that they will keep the game close. That's why I think taking the points is a good one here. And then Toledo minus 5.5 versus Akron. Toledo been terrific against the spread, 17-7 so far this season. In a MAC this year that has been, the MAC usually is kind of when it comes to basketball. They've had a terrific basketball season.
Yeah.
Actually, a very good team. But I think Toledo is a good buy at -5.5 tonight.
All right. The NBA games for Charlie as well, too. The Suns -5 over the Raptors. Hornets -1.5 at the Pelicans. And
It's
the
a
under
parlay, and
229.5
under
is a parlay.
229.5, and it's a +260. So see I've gotten hooked on these freaking parlays. And folks, let me tell you, you want to start screaming at your TV screen, have these parlays because you got these multiple deals going on, and you just I love it. I love it. It just makes it so fun.
All right, so that's that. And if you're watching the replay, you'll have plenty of time to get in on these games. It'll be about 6:30 by the time these picks come out on the replay edition tonight as well, too. And of course, you can always download, subscribe, any of the information you got. Big weekend in college basketball. 12 automatic bids have already been completed. Gonzaga, Loyola, Chicago lead the list. Let me read down the list here real quick. Jacksonville State, Longwood, Delaware, Wright State, Loyola, Chicago, Bryant, Murray State, Colgate, Chattanooga, South Dakota State, Georgia State, and Gonzaga, the 12 automatic bids that have already been completed, with Gonzaga and Loyola Chicago leading the list. 20 more bids still to come ahead of Selection Sunday. 15 berths will be on Saturday and 5 on Sunday. And then, of course, Selection Sunday, 6 o'clock Eastern on CBS. 36 at-large bids left to go. Let's break it down by conference here. We've got semifinals going on today, and a lot of the conferences, 15 conferences, have their semifinal series. And then the other 5 have their quarterfinals with semifinals tomorrow. And then, of course, Sunday we'll cap it out 1 o'clock or noon Eastern, I guess, on Sunday is when everything starts. And then it'll get all the way to 6 o'clock when CBS will have the selection show. All right, starting in the ACC. These are the teams that I have. And Charlie, I'll let Charlie comment on them. Duke, North Carolina, Notre Dame, North Carolina, Miami, Wake Forest, Virginia, Virginia Tech all in the semifinal games tonight. Duke 8.5. 148 versus Miami, UNC 2.5 versus Virginia Tech 139.5. I don't see anybody else in the ACC coming out of this conference, Charlie. I think all 6 that are there and all 4 that are playing today are pretty much locked in. I don't think there's any question marks coming in out of the ACC for part of these. The one conference winner, and then the rest of them at large bids.
Yeah. It's the ACC's just had a down year. I mean, that's just plain and simple. And I don't think I agree with you. I don't see any surprises at this point.
Do you have a potential winner for the ACC overall after tomorrow night? You think Duke will win, or any of the other 3 teams have a shot at beating them? I think Miami has a pretty good shot. They always play Duke pretty tough. Virginia Tech has a tough time scoring, and Hubert Davis had a great year as a first-year coach, 23 wins for North Carolina as well. But what do we think as far as the ACC?
When Duke could not win for their coach in his final game on the home floor, they could lose at any time, anywhere, anyhow, at any moment. That's it. I'm done. I'm out.
Yeah. 11-point favorite last week against North Carolina. Don't you think those Tar Heel fans were happy that they went into Cameron on Krzyzewski's last home game and ended up
pitiful?
Yeah,
pitiful.
And blowout,
you me and 3 of our friends could have won that game for Coach K.
Yeah, and he said so on his post-game ceremony as well too. All right, so we're pretty much set with the ACC. Winner comes tomorrow night, and the ACC final on Saturday evening as well too. Let's go to the Big Ten. It's quarterfinal day. The first 2 games have already come in. In fact, let me give you the scores of the first 2 Big Ten games. Iowa is playing Rutgers right now. They are up 63-49. They're really good over Rutgers, 63-49. Indiana with the big upset, 65-63 over Illinois. The games still to come. Wisconsin 3.5 versus Michigan State. Purdue 10.5 versus a surprising Penn State team, 134 there. The teams I have in already: Illinois, Wisconsin, Purdue, Rutgers, who has won 4 times. They've beaten the top 4 Big Ten teams, all on the road this year. Rutgers, Iowa, Ohio State, even though they lost to Penn State yesterday, I think they're in as well too. Michigan State, I think they're in. Indiana, if they can somehow get one more win tomorrow in the semifinals, they may push themselves in. Michigan blowing a 17-point lead, I think they're out, and I don't think there's anybody else in the Big Ten to talk about in this conference, Charlie, unless I'm missing somebody. But what do you think about Indiana possibly already being in your mind after the victory over Illinois today, or still on the bubble?
I think they're still in the bubble. I think the committee's got. I mean, the committee's going to want to put Indiana in for two reasons. Number one, it's Indiana, and all you have to do is say Indiana, and casual fans will tune in. I mean, seriously. I mean, we got to talk business, and is business. Number two, Indiana will travel. They can send Indiana to Anchorage, and people from Indiana will go there. I mean, because Hoosier fans are crazy. So it's a good deal for the NCAA to have Indiana in the tournament. I don't think it's automatic yet, but I think I think the mitigating factors that are there, I think they're very close. They're on the bubble, but I think the bubble's leaning in their direction.
One more win by Indiana tomorrow to get to the championship game could very well put them in and take one of the other at-larges out in terms of that. Michigan blows a 17-point lead to Indiana yesterday. One of 5 teams that I had between Wednesday and Thursday that had double-digit leads that could not cover. Virginia Tech and Virginia on Wednesday. And then yesterday, the 3, Ohio State. I forget the other ones. The big ones. Michigan was the other one. And then Texas had an 18-point lead at the half. They lost to TCU. Boy, if you had the favorites yesterday, you were really hurting because the underdogs came through, including Colorado was down 7 to Oregon at halftime. They ended up taking the lead, but they were down at 1.7, and they ended up coming back and winning and covering and ended up beating Oregon pretty bad. We'll get to the Pac-12 in a second, but as far as the Big Ten goes, are we settled with the Big Ten here, Charlie?
I think pretty much so. And Vassal, you made a great point about those double-digit leads right there that I'd like to just hook into for just a second. Be careful with your bank on these tournament games right now. These conference tournament games. You've got teams right now that are desperate. A prime example, and I'm just going to use it because it pops into my head, was that game last night between Oklahoma and Baylor. You had Baylor teams cruising in. Yeah, we're in, we're there, we're against. And you got Oklahoma, a team who's so desperate. They're on the bubble. They want to be there and everything else. And you know what? Baylor got spanked. Now, I know I'm out of conference here, but I'm just talking money right now. I'm talking money, folks. So listen to me. So what happened was, if you put your money on the favorite last night, you had to tear your ticket up and you were swearing at yourself in the mirror. Okay. So when you're putting money on these games, be very, very careful because you've got an element here of adrenaline and desperation and perspiration. Wow, I could be a coach. That's coming into play that we don't like to talk about in the wagering world, but it is going to come into play. So don't overrun your bankrolls. And I think we just lost Vasu, but he'll be back. You don't want to run your bankrolls up too high on some of these games because there is an undefined element there that is going to come into play in these tournament games that you cannot control through stats. And so don't, I'm just going to say it plain, don't blow your wad. Okay. Don't take that wad and go boom on that game because you're going to get burnt. I mean, if you wagered too heavily yesterday on Baylor, you're not in good shape today. So you want to, money management is a big part of and I'm waiting to, okay, I'm there. There's Vasu. Vasu, I just kept
welcome back to the Money and Run podcast. Come back. Internet All right, back from break here. A little bit of a handicap here with the new computer and new system going on. Vasuvada Party Charlie O back with you. We were in the middle of some of our greatest material that hopefully a lot of us heard on.
No, they heard me tell them how to manage their money, and all of them now know that I'm a bag of wind. So that's all right. The listeners that are still here will listen to you.
All right, semifinal. Let's get on to the college basketball semifinal Friday for the Big 12. I've got Baylor, Kansas, Texas Tech, Texas, TCU, Iowa State as a question mark. Oklahoma is a question mark. They play today. Kansas 8.5 over TCU 139. Texas Tech -7 versus Oklahoma. I think Iowa State could probably be taken out of that equation right now. They're under 500 in conference. They didn't get to the semifinal game, and I think Iowa State probably is the team that may be out of there, although they have 20 wins and they are stronger than a lot of the other smaller conferences from that standpoint. But I like Oklahoma's chances better to get in than I do Iowa State. So what do you think about the Big 12, especially with semifinal Friday coming up? Kansas 8.5 over TCU, and then Texas Tech 7 over Oklahoma.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think Iowa State is done. Oklahoma, I think, has become a bubble team in the conference or in the tournament. But I think again things are going their way. Again, here we go, folks. You have to understand the business end of it, the intangibles. Oklahoma will travel. They will bring big audiences just because people around the world love Oklahoma. So they've got things leaning their way. Plus, they're playing good basketball. Okay. You beat Baylor. You beat Baylor convincingly. So that all leans away. It means that you can suck it up and go. So I think things are leaning their way. I don't think they have to win this next game. I think they just have to play well in order to go. So I think that does well. TCU, again, I think they just have to have a nice showing against Kansas and they'll be fine. So yeah, I think we're looking at definitely 6 and Oklahoma could pop in there and make it 7.
Yeah, I think Oklahoma could get in there. I'm not sure about Iowa State yet, so I don't think.
No, I don't think there's enough.
Texas Tech.
I think they're going to fall to the wayside and also fall to the fact that they're not a draw.
Yeah, I think Oklahoma gets in as well too. So I have them at 5 teams going into the Big 12. I don't know. I don't think there's anybody else in the Big 12 that's going to go there. All right, the Big East semifinal, Big East day as well too. Providence a 3-point favorite over Creighton with a big win for Creighton over Marquette yesterday. Villanova 2.5 over UConn in the night game. I've got Providence, Villanova, UConn, Creighton, Marquette, and Seton Hall in. St. John's is a question mark, although they're not in any of the semifinal games, so they may be out. Xavier, boy, they started off hot, and then they ended up losing to Butler the other day as well, too. So that didn't help them as well, too. And then you got Providence, as I said, they're playing Creighton in game 1 tonight, Villanova and UConn in game 2 tonight. What about the Big East, Charlie? I think St. John's probably is out. I want to put Xavier in, but boy, the last 10 games, they have just not played well, and they haven't covered at all. And they played close games against teams that they dominated in the first half of the conference season.
You know, Xavier's schedule always puts them in a position where you want to put them in because they always are willing to take on everybody. They're like that middleweight that's willing to fight a heavyweight all the time. But I agree with you. I just don't think there's enough there in their record this year to to say, yeah, we're going to put you in. I think it stops at Seton Hall, and that's it this year for the Big East.
All right, very interesting games tonight. Creighton, Providence, Villanova, UConn as well too. Their championship game, one of the 15 on Saturday, tomorrow afternoon as well too. All right, Pac-12, Arizona, UCLA, USC, Colorado. Oregon has had 2 wins at UCLA and at USC. They've beaten teams this year. I think they're in. Washington State, Washington, I have question marks for. Arizona, 9.5 versus Colorado, 149. They've already beaten Arizona this year on senior night at home when they were a big underdog. And then UCLA -6 over USC, 134.5 in the second game. That second game will be on FS1 tonight, 11:30 Eastern, 8:30 Pacific from Las Vegas from the T-Mobile Arena. You're shaking your head on Oregon, Charlie.
No,
I like the teams that are in there.
I hope they enjoy their invitation to the NIT.
You think Washington State or Washington's going to get in? I like Washington State.
I'm agreeing with Joe Lunardi. I think for the first time in history, the Mountain West will put in more teams into the tournament than the Pac-12.
Wow, I didn't have that many teams for the Mountain West. We'll get to the Mountain West in a second, but what do you think about? You don't think Washington State or Washington are there as well too?
No, I think you're looking at Arizona, UCLA, USC. Stop.
Colorado.
No.
Really? I think Colorado's in. I think Colorado's good showing. If they beat Arizona tonight, then they'll get in.
Don't take that as I don't think they deserve to be in.
Yeah.
But I don't think the tournament committee likes the Pac-12 anyway.
Yeah.
And I think they're looking for any excuse they can to condense the number of teams that go anyway. I don't know why there is such prejudice against the Pac-12. Seriously, I don't. I really don't know what they've done.
Well, I'll say this. If there's a question mark on Colorado, if they beat Arizona tonight, then that pretty much should punch.
Well, okay, if they beat Arizona, then they can't keep them.
That's twice they'll beat Arizona this year, right?
But they're not going to beat Arizona.
I think Colorado's in. I think the top 4. I think the top 4 teams in the Pac-12 are in.
No, you didn't hear me stick my tongue out at you and call you bad names. And again, I'm not saying they shouldn't be in. I mean, there are teams that are going to be in that Colorado would be much more deserving over. Right. Again, in some ways, Vasu, and I know people don't like to hear me say these things, but if you're going to be a sports fan, you got to be realistic. They're not a good business decision.
Right.
Okay. They're in Colorado. They don't travel well. They don't draw a good TV audience. There's a lot of factors there for a tournament committee that don't play well. So in my mind, they are bubble at best because of those factors.
All right.
Do they deserve to be in for what their resume says? Yeah, they sure do. But the committee doesn't like the Pac-12 to start with, and it's just another factor to dump them.
All right. Speaking of teams that may not deserve to get in there, let me give you the updates here. It's quarterfinal Friday in the SEC. Arkansas has a 16-point lead over LSU, 42-26. Arkansas over LSU. They were an underdog coming in. I think a 3-point underdog. And then Auburn gets beat by Texas A&M. Texas A&M beats Auburn 67-62 to advance in their conference tournament as well too. So I believe those two are going to play each other tomorrow. We don't have the lines out for tomorrow yet, but it's going to be semifinal Saturday. Auburn, Kentucky, Tennessee, Arkansas, LSU, Texas A&M, and Alabama. Florida lost to Texas A&M yesterday. They've got a question mark to me. Vanderbilt, Mississippi State also have question marks to me as well too. Vanderbilt's played pretty well this year. They've got a game that's still going to be played against Kentucky tonight. They figure out a way to play close to Kentucky or get in. The SEC might have the overriding power. They're 10.5-point underdogs to Kentucky, 142.5. Tennessee, 7.5 over Mississippi State, 130.5. I think Florida losing may have taken them out, but Mississippi State and Vanderbilt still in there playing tonight. And if they come out with victories, then they may end up finding themselves in. But right now I see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 teams, 7 teams, including Alabama, already in from the SEC this year, Charlie.
Yeah, I love Jerry Stackhouse. They ain't going. I mean, I don't care if it's the SEC or not. You can't put a team in a tournament with a losing conference record. I'm sorry. I don't unless you come in and win your conference tournament, you cannot do it. I mean, if you do, I will boycott the tournament.
Yeah, but I agree with you. No, I agree with you. But if they beat Kentucky tonight and their RPI is pretty high from the standpoint of where they are compared to the other smaller conferences. Boy, if they beat Kentucky tonight, though, and get into the championship game, it ain't going to happen. But I'm just saying.
No.
All right.
No.
All right.
I mean, at some point, something's got to mean something. Okay.
Right. No, I agree.
You know, RPI and POM and all this other thing. Yeah. At some point, a win has to mean something. Vesu, you got me wound up now. Okay. At some point, a W still has to mean something. Okay. Now I know, I mean, you know, if it's Little Sisters of the Poor, I understand. But at some point, a win and a loss still has to mean something. And I'm looking at Vanderbilt right now, and they are 7-11 in conference.
Right. No, I get it.
Back of Auburn. Okay. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Better luck next year.
Well, I'm giving them credit. They played better than they did the last few years.
Oh, no. And Jerry Stackhouse is my guy.
Yeah.
Jerry Stackhouse should have been coaching in the NBA. He labored up there with those guys in 915 in Toronto. Outside Toronto, all this. He should be coaching in the NBA. He's my guy, but no, not.
All right. We wrap up here on the Make the Money and Run podcast. We'll just go through these smaller conferences. All right. We'll go through these smaller conferences. American Conference, Houston. They beat Cincinnati earlier today. They beat them by 13. I believe they covered that game too as well. And then Tulsa and Temple are playing right now. I'm sorry, Tulane and Temple are playing right now. 15-12, Tulane over Temple. In their quarterfinal matchup, SMU is 10 over Tulsa tonight. Memphis 9.5 over UCF, 139 the total. Houston, SMU, Memphis, or do we include Memphis in that equation here, Charlie?
Memphis is bubble, you know, and you know what? They got a coach that nobody likes. And, you know, I'm just calling it like I see it.
Yeah.
You know, I didn't say they got a coach I don't like. They just got a coach that nobody likes,
right?
You know, in the tournament and committees and stuff. So that may work against them.
All right, Conference USA, one bid league. Northern Texas, 16-2 in conference. If they lose, then maybe they get 2 teams in, but there are other teams that are probably worthy of it right now. I'm trying to find the score here on that game of Northern Texas because they are pretty good. They were ranked 16-2. They lost 42-36 to Louisiana Tech. So that's going to hurt. Louisiana Tech's probably going to take one of that spots, and that's going to end up being a one bid league. The MAC, we talked about the MAC earlier. You talked about Toledo. They're very good. Kent State's very good. Akron and Ohio, the other 2 teams in the semifinals today. One of these teams wins. I don't know if there's going to be a second team. I would think Kent State might be in, but this is probably a one bid league right now, unless Toledo loses tomorrow. If Toledo loses tomorrow, then we could have a 2-bid league in that conference.
Yeah. Again, so this is one of the problems that's happening. And again, I understand it, and I'm not. Lord have mercy. I understand funding of conferences and leagues and everything else, so I'm not going to go up against it. But when you have somebody like the Big Ten that's going to put 8 or 9 in, when you've got, you know, when you got the Big 12 putting 6 or 7 in, everything else, some of these mid-major conferences are going to wind up with 1 team in. You know, it's a shame because they've got some teams that would, especially in these early rounds, would make some great, you know, 5-12s, you know, 7-13s. They would make some great games, but that's just where it's going to suffer.
Right. Missouri Valley Conference, Loyola Chicago won the conference tournament last week. They'll probably be the only one to get in, but Northern Iowa had a great year. Drake and Southeast Missouri State probably not going to get in. Drake, in fact, won't get in. And Southeast Missouri won't get in, even though they both had 24 wins this year. And that's a lot of wins, and that's good conference. It's a very underrated conference. Northern Iowa ended up winning the regular season title by Loyola Chicago, a Final Four team from a few years ago. They won the conference tournament. They may end up being the only one in, but I wouldn't be surprised if some of these other upsets happen where UNI takes over over one of those at-large bids. If in fact some of these big power conferences get upset in the finals, in the semifinals or the finals, come today or tomorrow. All right, the WCC. We love the WCC. Gonzaga, St. Mary's, USF, Santa Clara, BYU. I have his question marks. BYU lost early in the conference tournament. Santa Clara lost to St. Mary's. Actually, Santa Clara lost to Gonzaga early in the week. I don't know, Charlie. It's we talked about the WCC maybe having more bids than the Pac-12. I don't see more than 5 teams in this scenario, which would be about as many as the Pac-12 has. But I'm not sold on BYU, and I'm kind of sold on Santa Clara to be in, but definitely USF in the top 15, top 20 in the rankings, in the RPI. Ken Palm, St. Mary's, number 15, and then of course Gonzaga. We know about Gonzaga, number 2 overall in the Ken Palm rankings. But what do we think about the WCC after Gonzaga, St. Mary's, and USF?
Take out BYU. I just don't think they're. I don't think they have a place at this point. Not that they wouldn't do well in the tournament. I don't. It's not that at all. I just don't think there's a spot for them at this point. The top 3 there: Gonzaga, St. Mary's, USF. They're in. Santa Clara. Well, it's not that I don't think they would be fun to be in there. I just don't know that there's a spot to shoehorn them in.
I got you.
Again, they need something weird to happen in a tournament someplace to open up a spot for them.
Well, this year in college basketball, it's been a very interesting year. A lot of upsets, a lot of things going on. It's a lot of semifinals, 15 semifinal conferences today, 5 quarterfinal conferences today. They'll play their semifinals tomorrow, 15 championship games on Saturday, 5 championship games on Sunday as well. We'll document it on social media every day, 6 o'clock Eastern. Don't forget our replay today at 6 o'clock Eastern as well on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter. Thanks to everybody for joining us as well. We'll be back every Friday at 3 o'clock Eastern, 12 o'clock Pacific, live on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter. Great to be back. I just want to throw something out to everybody. I appreciate all the notes, everybody that sent to me on everything that happened to me personally in the last month. I really appreciate it. It meant a lot to see over 700 comments come back to me. I'm doing fine. Everything's great. We're moving on to 2022. That's all I need to say about it. I don't want to go into a long thing about it, but I really do appreciate all the love and support I got from everybody. It meant a lot to me to see all the comments. I'm recovered. I'm completely fine, and I appreciate it. And we're going to go on to 2022. And one more thing before I go, before we say goodbye, I just wanted to say the lockout is over. Spring training starts this weekend. Opening day, April 7th. We're going to have a full 162-game schedule, 12 playoff teams, 6 teams in the National League, 6 teams in the American League. No one is more happy than me to see that, not only from an employment standpoint, but also because I love baseball.
Yep.
Ever since 1997, since I was 9 years old, collecting my first baseball cards and now covering the game and loving the game that I love so much going into this year. It's been a big deal. Once again, thanks to everybody for the support. We're here every Friday, 3 o'clock Eastern, 12 o'clock Pacific. I appreciate all the personal comments I got. I appreciate the phone calls and texts that I got. Charlie, it's great to see you. We'll be back next Friday, and I'm looking forward to a big 2022, and hopefully we'll be there when we all make the money and run. All right, have a good afternoon, everybody. Take care. Download, subscribe if you miss any of the podcasts. Don't forget to replay later, and we will see you every Friday live at 3 o'clock Eastern. Take care, everybody. Have a good afternoon.